I want to share with you a little scandal that's been brewing in Washington that you may not have heard about. Not because you're not paying attention, but because it involves Joe Biden, and the media always shuts these things down. And I'm not talking about Hunter Biden, though it is looking increasingly likely that the president's deadbeat son is soon going to be indicted on some sort of charges involving gun ownership, drag use, or tax evasion. That's right, I said avoision. It's a perfectly cromulent word. But how can we tell? Well, even CNN's Jake Tapper asked the president about it in a softball interview this week.
CNN's reporting and the Washington Post reporting suggests that prosecutors think they have enough to charge your son Hunter for tax crimes and a false statement about a gun purchase. Personally and politically, how do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of my son.
Proud, all right. And I'll tell you what, in something as staged managed as a Jake Tapper, Joe Biden sit-down, nothing like that is ever asked if there's not a reason for it. Mark my words. Speaking of sons, though, Joe Biden had an absolute shocker this week concerning his deceased other son, Beau, who died of brain cancer in 2015. Or did he?
Just imagine, I mean it sincerely. I say this as a father of a man who won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, and lost his life in Iraq. Imagine the courage, the daring, and the genuine sacrifice they all made.
Lost his life in Iraq? For the second time in just about as many weeks, the president has shown that he can't remember who has died. Remember the Where's Jackie incident from a few weeks ago? Or, indeed, how they passed. Yet, if that's not shocking enough, evidence has also emerged that Joe Biden has tried to manipulate America's allies to help him out. Now, remember a few months back when Joe Biden went to the Middle East to try and mend fences with the Saudis and just coincidentally get them to pump more oil to bring down gas prices and save him from the mistake he made shutting down the Keystone Pipeline? Well, of course, it was a tremendous failure, but now we are starting to learn about just how much of a failure it was and what happened behind the scenes. Now, since the trip, Joe Biden has been drawing down the United States Strategic Petroleum Reserve, something that really exists more to protect the country in times of crisis rather than to prop up Democrats up at the polls. Although, when you are a progressive like Joe Biden, who thinks that Republicans are the enemy of all that is good, well, it's a bit easy to get confused. It's also easy to get confused for Joe Biden anyway, but that's another story. Anyway, after all that begging, the Saudis have told the U.S. to take a hike, because Lord knows they have not been happy with the Biden administration's ties to Iran, among other things. Not only have they cut oil production, but the Saudi kingdom has also released a statement claiming that the Biden administration asked them to wait a month, i.e. until after the midterm elections, before taking the action which would inevitably push oil prices higher. And what's more, there is even talk that the White House threatened the Saudis with the withholding of arms sales if they didn't play ball. Now, let's just think about this. Using a foreign policy instrument as a cudgel with which to manipulate domestic policy and election outcomes? Gosh, I remember when the Democrats drafted articles of impeachment against Donald Trump for doing similar things after there were claims he had a quid pro quo with the Ukrainians, offering to release military aid in exchange for investigations into oil and gas expert Hunter Biden's allegedly corrupt dealings in that country's petroleum industry. Amazingly, though, the White House didn't push back on claims it heavied Saudi Arabia and instead issued this classic non-denial denial, saying, quote, "We presented Saudi Arabia with analysis to show that there was no market basis to cut production targets and that they could easily wait for the next OPEC meeting, i.e. after the midterms, to see how things developed." National Security spokesman John Kirby said in that statement. And it is a sign, though, now. I mean, think about this. It is a sign of just how bonkers things have gotten that in a credibility contest between the American White House on one hand and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the other, the Saudis seem like the ones you'd actually want to trust.